Good evening. I am Kimberly Jeffries Leonard, and on behalf of President Guinevere Catchings-Hess and our Board of Directors of the Black Women's Agenda, Inc., we are so pleased that you have joined us again tonight to participate in this critical conversation on financial empowerment. This conversation is sponsored by the Black Women's Agenda Incorporated in collaboration with the Coca-Cola Company and our 24 Black Women's Agenda National Collaborating Organizations. If you missed the first webinar on budget and goal setting, that webinar is available on recording on the Black Women's Agenda YouTube channel, and it's located on the Black Women's Agenda website at bwa-inc.org. You must go back and watch it if you've missed it. But tonight, we have an empowering class on mastering credit and debt management, and our financial expert, Martin Booker, will teach you essential strategies to effectively navigate the world of credit, including building a strong credit score and building a strong credit history. You will discover proven techniques to manage and reduce debt, enabling you to regain control over your financial future. And after that masterclass, there will be an empowering discussion led by BWA member Dolores Kennedy Williams with Opal Bacon, president of the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs, Dr. Deborah Taylor King, president of the Women's Missionary Society, AME Church, Sandra Crowder, president of the Women's Home and Overseas Missionary Society, AME Zion, and Elizabeth A. Jones, president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. They will discuss what their organizations are doing in the area of financial empowerment for the communities they serve. I am now pleased to introduce our speaker, Martin Booker. Martin Booker is a member of AARP's Financial Resilience Team, where he leads financial education initiatives focused on Social Security, budgeting, and investing. Before joining AARP, Martin worked in a nonprofit sector where he developed a passion for helping people improve their money habits. He has a master's degree in social work from the University of Connecticut and earned a certificate in financial planning at Georgetown University. Now again, we're going to have an empowering discussion after this workshop, and I am pleased to turn it over to Martin for our masterclass. Martin.
Thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate that introduction. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you, Black Women's Agenda, for having us and hosting this event with AARP and all of the great organizations that are a part of this this presentation. We are excited to be here. I'm so excited to be here for part two. We are going to dive in and have a great conversation about taking charge of your credit and managing debt. So in part one, I want to make sure that I recap part one and just give you an idea of what you missed, because you're going to want to go back and see it. It was a great conversation. We dove into a lot of great topics. So without further ado, let's dive in. Let's make sure that we have a conversation. Now, a couple of things that I want to do. So we have the chat open as much as you want. Talk to me in the chat. I don't mind interaction. You can use your Q&A function to ask questions if you'd like. You can use the chat to make comments, to share information, or ask your questions directly in the chat. We're going to go through this presentation. Then, as we mentioned, we have a powerful conversation following this, and then we're going to do Q&A. So you want to stick around because we're going to answer every question that you have, but we're going to do it at the end of our presentation tonight. So we will start Q&A at a later portion. So in the meantime, let's get started with just a quick recap of what we talked about. Well, first, let me just take you through the agenda of tonight. So first, I'm going to tell you about our presentation from last week and just give you just a snippet, because you have to go back and watch it. There's so much good information there. But then we're going to really dive into understanding credit. I want to give you some tips and some hacks, some of the fun things that you can do to build and make sure that your credit, build and maintain your credit successfully. I'm going to tell you everything that I've ever known about credit, all of the things that are helpful to know while you're maintaining your credit, or while you're building your credit or rebuilding your credit. Wherever you are in the journey, I'm going to speak to you tonight. Also, we're going to talk about debt, managing debt, reducing debt, some of the best strategies to do so. I want to make sure that I'm making you aware of some of those traps and some of the things that could be harmful to you in your money journey, right? We have this relationship with money, and we have a long relationship. It's going to be just as long as our lifetime. Everything we do It's going to have money's going to be involved in some way. So I want to make sure that throughout this journey, you're prepared for managing debt, reducing debt, or anything that you have to do within that space. And then I want to tell you some successful ways to manage your debt or credit so that you can be prepared to take advantage and really win at this money game over your life. So to start off, just within the recap, I'm going to just briefly mention some of the things that we talked about last week. The first thing was our financial strengths. We talked about the 4 financial strengths that we all tend to have. And there's within all of these strengths, so within all of these profiles, there are some strengths and then there's some areas of opportunity. When I come down your aisle, I want you to just say me. That's the one that I'm good at, or that's what I do very well. So I always say that everybody, we're really good at either making money, saving money, growing money, spending, or giving money. So when it comes to those 3, the money makers are the people who, over your career, you've always been a high income earner. You were the person with the lemonade stand. You were the one, collecting tennis balls and taking them back to the tennis club to just for a fee. You found ways to make money over your career. You've been good at it, and that's one of the things that you focused on most of your career. Now, when it comes to the money maker, that's something that you do well. You tend to make money well, but the area of opportunity for the money maker is in you tend to spend money because you're used to making it back. You're used to a consistent cash flow. You're used to making money, so spending it has never been an issue for you. So one of the things that the money maker has to do is you have to focus on, opportunities to save and grow your money as opposed to just making it. For the saver, you're the person who, you're the one, you tend to save your money. You hold on to your money. You don't have an issue keeping your cash, right? You may be frugal, or you're just someone who will not spend. You tend to like to hold on to your money. You look at your bank account, there's usually a pretty good amount in there, and you don't necessarily have to budget because you're not going to spend it anyway. Now, for the saver, while you're great at saving, one of your areas of opportunity is growing money because you're used to saving it. You're used to seeing your account grow. So the idea of putting it of risking your money is a scary thing for you, right? So opportunity cost is lost when you have a large sum of money sitting in a bank savings account. I've always said, if your largest sum of money is sitting in a bank savings account, it's in the wrong place. So for the saver, you have to be willing to take risk. You have to be willing to invest. You can invest in a very smart and conservative way, but you have to grow your money. For the money grower, you're the person who you tend to always like to increase your money. You see your money as employees. You're sending your money to work. You're going to put it in an investment. You're going to put it into a real estate portfolio, into the stock market somewhere because you want to see it grow. Now, for the grower, your area of opportunity is within saving because you do not like to leave cash liquid. You're used to seeing your money grow. So the idea of not growing your money it's an uneasy feeling for you. What's up, but and where that becomes an issue is when there's market fluctuation and you need an emergency fund. You probably won't leave 6 months worth of your expenses in an emergency fund because you could be growing that money, right? That's typically what the grower's thinking. So your area of opportunity is actually holding some cash just in case of emergencies. And then lastly, that's a spender / giver. The spender, you're the one, you love life. You like to spend money. And for you, you're going to just enjoy every dollar you have. For you, it's hey, we don't, you say things like we only live once. You're going to make sure that you enjoy the money that you have. And for the giver, you're the person with the bleeding heart. You're always helping others. You want to make sure that you're helping others. And you're going to continue to make sure that you serve other people. That's usually the first thing you do. People know to come to you when they're in need. So for you, the giver and the spender, here's your areas of opportunity. For the giver, you have to set the right boundaries. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And in the chat, just tell me if I've come down your lane. If you think you fall into one of these categories, you can say which one you're in. But we want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, right? You have to put on your own oxygen mask first so that you're taking care of you. And for the spender, we have to make sure that you're saving. A lot of times the giver and the spender, you tend to put yourself, you may put the giver, you're going to put yourself second and you may not save, but the spender, you're also, you're not saving. You may not be saving as much either because you tend to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. You're going to have a good time. So within those categories, you can hear more in part 1. So go back and listen to that link, listen to the video there. Some of the other things that we talked about in part 1. is the idea of what's the most important goal. So we're going to talk about credit scores. We're going to talk about building up our credit and making sure that we have a great credit score. But in a lot of cases, our credit score is what we look at as one of our most important measures of success. And I'm going to tell you that your most important measure of success is your net worth, not necessarily your credit score. You can use your credit score to acquire assets that's going to make you more money. But ultimately, we want to make sure that our net worth is in order and it's positive and continues to grow. So when we think about this, we're talking about our assets, which is on the column on the left, versus minus our liabilities. So everything we own minus everything we owe. And again, you can hear more about that in our first presentation. The other things we talked about, I'm going to get through these pretty quickly. We talked about budgeting, and I just want to give you a couple of quick tips so that you'll go back and just really dive deeper into these. So first, we talked about the way that you budget. So budgeting is a planning tool. So you want to plan in advance. So you want to create your budget at least a month in advance. The other thing, you can budget based on your pay frequency. So when you look at your budget, you can lay it out based on the times that you get paid. If you get paid weekly, then you can have a budget that's laid out every week, and all the expenses that you have to pay from that week before you get paid again are listed in the expense category. And then you have the next pay listed, and you can budget based on that. So you want to list based on your pay schedule, bi-weekly, monthly, weekly. If you get paid daily, you maybe, have some type of gig where you're getting paid daily. You can lay your budget out so that every dollar before you spend it, it already has an assignment. You know exactly where it's going. The other thing is pay all your bills on payday. This was something we talked about. And the idea behind this is so that you're not thinking about money and focused on money throughout the entire month, right? Imagine having to think about every bill that's due, and you have bills due about 16, 17 different days of the month. Instead, on the day you get paid, pay all of your bills. And now you don't have to think about bills until the next payday. So you're not having that financial fatigue. Then also we talked about separating your bill money. When it comes to money management, you can lay out your bills and have money going into different accounts, and have the one that's specifically for your bills. You can have direct deposit going directly into that account. And then you have your fund money or for your miscellaneous expenses in a completely separate account. So that way you're not mixing your funding. And it's a good idea to do that. Also, we talked about adjusting your budget as you make payments. So your budget is a living document. You project out what you're going to spend early in the month, and then you go back and adjust those payments as you get paid. And that's important for you to do. And then we talked about rounding up on your income and rounding down on your expenses. So if you have fluctuating income and fluctuating expenses, you want to make sure that you round that you're managing those so that you're not. So that you don't have many discrepancies when it's time to make those payments. The other thing is, don't forget the necessities. Most people make a budget and they tend to forget things like their hair, their nails, the eating out, breakfast, lunch. Look at all the things at the bottom where that arrow is facing. Those are all that's the discretionary spending that we have. And a lot of times we put our bills in the budget and then we forget about the things that are just as important, which is our fund money and all the other things that we're going to do. Budget it out, plan it out, put your vices in your budget, whatever it is, it goes in the budget because you're going to spend it. And that way you're accounting for it and you know what you can do and how much you can do until the next time you get paid. All right, so that's just a quick overview. We spent 40 minutes talking about that. So I gave a lot more tips. I shared a lot more information. We also talked about setting goals and some of the right ways to do that. So go back and check that part of the series out so that you can learn even more about budgeting and goal setting. Now, I want to talk about credit. So that's what we're here for today. So we're going to talk about the oh so important thing, which is credit, right? We need at times we need it, sometimes we don't, but we want to make sure that we manage it well so that we can use it to the best of our ability. So when it comes to credit, what is it? It's a contract agreement in which you borrow money, a sum of money from someone, and then the lender sets up a payment plan, or they have some type of repayment system for you to where you pay them back at a later date. And usually there's going to be some interest involved, right? Because imagine if you had unlimited money, the idea that you could or not even unlimited, but a large amount of money. The idea that you could lend it to people and that be a way that you make money, you may take advantage of that if you have the opportunity. So that's what lenders are doing. They see that this is an opportunity for them to make money by lending out the money that they have. So that's what's happening when we think about credit. Now, when it comes to credit, there's two main parts, right? When we think about our credit, there's our credit report, which I like to call like our adult report card, right? It's our adult financial report card. We're looking at this to kind of get a sense of, what have I paid? What do I owe? All of the creditors that I currently have, the pay status, is it past due? Is it on time? Have I made payments on time? All of these things can be seen on your credit report. You can also see things like your previous addresses, so places that you've lived. You can look at all the places where you've borrowed within the last 7 years. And typically items will stay on your credit report for 7 years before they start to fall off of your credit report. So you want to, take a look at your credit report. It's very important because it has all the details behind what is on your credit score, which is the second part of our, when we think about our credit. Then our credit score, this is like our adult GPA, right? It's like our financial GPA when it comes to lending and borrowing money. This is how someone's going to be able to look and make a determination on, will I let you borrow or will I not let you borrow? And if I do let you borrow and your credit score is not great, it's going to cost you a lot more money than it would if you had good credit. Because if you've shown me that you've consistently paid back your lenders, or that you've consistently kept things from making it on your credit report, so you've managed those financial obligations, then now what you're telling me is that I can allow you to borrow money at a much cheaper rate because I can trust that you're going to pay it back without as much interest. So you look at your credit score, it can be anywhere between a 300 and an 850. And as you can see, anything above a 670 is going to be considered good credit. And anything below a 670 is where we start to fall into fair and poor credit. And that is where the basis of the interest rates are going to come in, or if someone will even loan you money. So you want to make sure that one of the things that we do is manage and keep a good credit score. One of the things I like to say is we want to keep a good credit score, but we don't want to rely on debt to live our lives, right? If we don't have to. So we'll talk more about that in a second, but your credit score is a very, very important number. You can use most banks now, they offer you your credit score free of charge. Or you could look at companies like Credit Karma. I believe even TurboTax or Intuit has gotten into providing credit scores as well, so that you can take a fast look. You're going to get your most accurate credit scores from one of the 3 credit bureaus, which I'm going to show you in a second. So when it comes to your credit score factors, what's making up your credit score? Your credit score is made up of this mix of things. Your payment history being the most important part of your credit score. So making or missing a payment will hurt or help your credit score more than anything else. Then next is going to be the amount that you owe. So when you think about this, your credit cards is going to be one of the big factors when it comes to the amount you owe. Because if you have whatever your credit card limit is, they're looking at how much you're spending up to your credit card limit. The rule is to try to stay below 30%. Best rule of thumb is to try to stay below 30% of your credit limit. So if you have a credit card with a $1,000 limit, you want to not try to spend no more than $300 on that credit card at any one point before you're paying it back. So that's one thing to keep in mind. That 30% number is really important when it comes to the amount that you owe and how you manage your credit cards. So for all of your credit cards, if you have any, you want to look at the limit and then figure out how much is 30% of each of these, and then try to keep your credit card below that as much as possible to optimize your credit score. The other things that's going to matter is your length of credit history. So how long have you had credit? This is kind of like having a job, right? When we think about, if you're a first-time receptionist and this is your first time on a job, are you going to be as good as someone who's been a receptionist for 15 years, right? You're a first-time receptionist, you may just be answering the phones and greeting people. If you've been there 15 years, you may be helping with payroll, you may help the finance team, HR, you may be, logging things, kind of managing, opening the doors, locking the doors, right? Because you have experience. So now your credit, the lenders, they're looking to see how much experience have you had? Have you managed debt successfully? Have you consistently made payments and paid it back on time? How much have you done these things? So your length of credit history is important. I've had people reach out to me and just say, Martin, hey, my credit score just went up and I didn't do anything. And in some cases, it's just simply because of their credit, the length. They had more time of managing debt, and now their credit score continues to increase because of it. And that's another thing with new credit, because you opened up a new line of credit. Sometimes you may see your score drop before you see it start to rise because you just opened a new account. So that credit history is new, right? So that causes your credit history to sometimes go down and then go back up. The other thing is the types of credit you use. So there's typically three main types of credit. You have your what they call revolving credit, which is going to be credit cards and store cards. These are things where you can use it, pay it back, use it, pay it back. You can consistently, the balance can go up and down based on your usage. And then there's revolving credit, and then there's installment credit, which is going to be things like car loans. You take out or a personal loan. I have a finite amount, and I just pay it down, and the amount that I pay is going to stay around the same. It's going to be the same amount that I'm paying. And then the last one is going to be your mortgage. So they're looking at that as its own bucket, because if you have a mortgage, that's a very big payment that can look good on your credit, but then you're paying that down over time. So these are your three different types, and they want to see how are you, do you have all three? Are you using all three? And are you managing all three well? So these are the things that can make up your credit score. But if you notice, there's all of these things, but what matters the most is your payment history and the amount you use. Literally 65% of your credit score is made up by paying your bills on time and keeping your debt low. If you had a pizza with 10 slices, you get 6.5 slices just for paying your bills on time and keeping your debt low. That is your reward. So if you do those two things successfully, you're doing more than half of what you need to do to manage your credit successfully. So keep that in mind over time. Now, if you're in a position where you have to build your credit back up, let's talk about some of the important things that we can do to rebuild our credit if we're in that position, or to just keep increasing our credit score, right? You may be in a good place, but you want it to be higher. Let's talk about some of the things that you want to do. One, at minimum, you want to make sure that you're hitting all of your minimum payments. Minimum payments are very important because, as we mentioned, 35% of your credit score is made up on making or missing payments. So you want to make the minimums as much as you can. Now, if you can, pay a little bit extra so that you can bring that debt down some more, because paying your balances down is another thing that can hurt your credit score. And that's 30% of your score. So if you have all maxed out credit cards, more than likely your credit score may be going down consistently. And the main reason is because those balances are so high. You can make every payment on time, but if you have all maxed out credit cards, your credit is still taking a pretty big hit. So as you pay those balances down, you're going to see your score start to increase. The other thing is looking at your credit report. We mentioned that, when you look at your credit report, you want to go through it in detail just to make sure that everything is accurate. If there are missed payments that you didn't miss, you want to make sure that you address that. And you can address that directly with any of the three credit bureaus to make sure that you're taking care of that. Taking care of anything that's an error on your credit report. The other thing is be careful with co-signing loans. I've heard horror stories of people co-signing loans, maybe co-signing for their sister, co-signing for a friend, for a loved one. And you're in a position when you co-sign, you have now signed up to legally own that debt along with the person. So now you're saying that both of our incomes is the reason that you're able to get this item, this asset, right? Maybe a car or a personal loan. I'm signing up for this with you. But unless you want to be fully responsible for paying it, or you're capable of fully paying it, you want to make sure that you're careful about co-signing on a loan, because it'll be on both of your credit reports if that person stops paying and you're not willing to take that payment over. So be careful about co-signing, because that could hurt your credit score in a big way. Also, secured loans. If you're in a position where your credit score is not great and you want to build it up, you want to continue to increase your credit score, one of the things that you can do is get what's called a secured loan. With a secured loan, you're backing the loan with the money already. And now they're giving you the opportunity to use the credit card and make payments and pay that credit card back down in order to build your credit while they hold your money. So in this case, you may put $300 down, they give you a $300 credit card. They're already holding your money, so that loan is technically secured. but you use that credit card just like any other credit card, and you can increase and you'll be able to increase your credit score by just simply using that credit card the correct way. And that's a good way to build your credit if you happen to have some delinquencies on your credit report, or you have, you may have some late payments and things that's holding your credit back. And the other thing is you want to do is if you're looking to increase your credit score, you want to try not to increase your credit card balances. Which credit cards, I'll tell you, they can be helpful, but they can also hurt you. And I want to talk about that a little bit. Just when we think about our credit cards and credit card usage, it's very important that we manage those well. You want to manage those with a level of discipline. Or if you don't have discipline, that's something that you have to be okay with knowing that I don't have the discipline to manage those. One of the most important components of money management is knowing yourself. You have to know your triggers. You have to know your vices. You have to know your level of discipline your level of discipline in order to successfully manage money, because there are some tools that could be really helpful that may not be in your best interest if you're not prepared for it. So when we think about credit cards, I always like to say that there are 3 types of credit card users. And when you look at this chart, follow me from left to right. So there's the disciplined person. If you're very disciplined, you can use your credit cards to pay for everything. You can pay your bills with your credit card. You can pay for all of your expenses throughout a month, but you know that you're going to keep your cash and you're going to use that cash to then pay the full balance off from those credit cards. Where do you benefit? You tend to benefit from the points that you're gaining. So you're gaining points over time. You may be getting cash back, or you may be getting points for free flights, staying in free hotels, free travel, all types of perks. But these perks are only beneficial if you're able to carry your card, use your card, and pay the full balance. It is counterintuitive to have a credit card and collect points, but then also pay the interest on the credit card. Because all the money that you're collecting in points, it does not add up to the interest that you're going to pay on those credit cards. So, I'll meet people all the time and they're like, well, I love my points. I want to keep collecting my points. And I always have to say, well, if you're paying interest, you are not working in your favor when it comes to using those credit cards. So that's the disciplined person. You're someone who could, with credit cards, you are successful and you can manage that without an issue. And then there's the semi-disciplined. This is the person who, in some cases, you're going to be fine. You pay a bill or two with your credit card. You can link something to your credit card. Let's say you link a subscription service. You can link some other bills, 1 or 2 other bills, but you're going to set that on automatic payment so that bill is consistently being paid off every month and there is no interest that you're accruing. And only a few bills though, right? Because we want to manage this well, because your main focus is not getting points and free perks. You might get some over time, but your main purpose is just keeping your credit score active. You want to continue to make payments and make sure that things are managed. Now, in this case, semi-disciplined, you might, have an impulsive moment at a store. So we don't want your credit cards to be on you. You want to keep your credit cards at home, lock them in a drawer, put them in a closet, but they're still active. There's still something happening with those credit cards from time to time. And they're still, it's still helping you to just build your credit. Now, for the undisciplined, you see what we say right here. Do not use credit cards, because these things can really cost you a lot of money. They can be very dangerous if you're using them wrong, or if you just continue to max them out. And when I talk about the people who are undisciplined, I mean, you're to the point. I've known people. They've said, hey, Martin, can you hold my credit cards? I want you to take them so that they're not on me. I said, okay. And then they reach back out and say, hey, I actually cut that credit card off and I had another one shipped to me. I just told them I lost my card, because they were at that level of wanting to use their credit card. In that case, it becomes dangerous for you. It's much more dangerous than it is helpful, because you're spending it and then you end up amassing this amount of debt that becomes, higher than some of the other bills that you pay, right? I've seen credit card monthly payments that are higher than car notes. And in that case, you're in a tough position to now try to pay down that debt. And we don't want to see you in that position, right? So keep that in mind. Now, the credit card, here's where I would say that there are some areas where the credit card, it can be helpful, right? The credit card with a credit card, this is one of the only ways to build your credit without paying any interest at all. Because with a personal loan, you have to pay some interest. With a mortgage, you're paying some interest. A car loan, you're paying some interest. Student loans, there's interest involved. With a credit card, if you're managing it the way that the disciplined person would manage it, or even the semi-disciplined, what you're able to do is pay that full balance off, but have your credit score continue to grow without worrying about paying any debt, or without paying any interest on your credit cards. So it is a way, it can be helpful in that way, but it can also be harmful in the other way. I always say credit cards, it can be like fire. Right? With fire, we can warm a house, we can cook a meal, we can do so many great things with it when it's used right. But also with fire, if it's used incorrectly, we can completely burn something down, right? Or harm something. And with a credit card, the exact same thing can happen. So you want to be careful of how you use it and when you use it. Here are some signs. If you're using a credit card or if you continue to carry it, here are some signs for you that you may need to cut up that credit card or just, stop using it so that you can pay it down. All right. So if you're someone who you've paid off your debt before, you may have gotten your credit card bills kind of high. They've gotten a little out of control, but then you've paid them off. You were happy that you did so, and then you maxed them out again. You're in a position where you're just kind of you're ping ponging, you're going back and forth, and you want to make sure that you're not in a position where you continue to max out your credit cards and then pay them off. And sometimes you've used some of your assets to pay off your credit cards. So you've tapped into your 401k, you've tapped into your home equity. You've done some of these things to make your debt more manageable. You sold a home and used some of that money to pay off your credit cards, but then you maxed them out again. That's a sign that, hey, maybe credit cards are not for me at this moment. And that's fine. It's okay. There may be a day when when things are, you're in a much better situation. The income is high enough. You can manage your debt with no issue. And then in that case, you can go back to the credit cards at that point, and you may be able to manage it better and use the system in a much better way. But for now, you may have to back off. If you've tried to take advantage of credit card points, but you continue to carry a balance each month, so you're spending more than you should, or that you would to pay all of your bills or manage your expenses. So you're carrying a balance after you've paid your credit card, or you continue to only pay the minimum or just above it. That's a way that you're kind of you're paying interest, and you're paying for those credit card points in a major way. In that case, you may want to cut the credit cards up or put them away. And then the last case is you'll use your credit cards even when you have cash. And this is not for the disciplined person who's using it for points, but you're the person who you got your credit card in your pocket, you got your debit card, you might even have a little cash. And whatever you're going to buy, you just said, I'm gonna put it on my credit card because I don't want to see my bank balance go down too low. And then you just pay the minimum. This is a situation where, again, you want to be careful of how you're using your credit cards. And you may be in a position where it's time to cut the credit card or put them away and just set it up to use it in a completely different way, which is perfectly fine if that's the case. All right. Now, as I mentioned, there are 3 credit bureaus. So if you want to go and look at your credit report, then you want to go to the 3 credit bureaus and take a look. So there's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. These are your main 3 credit bureaus. You can go to all 3, go to their websites and pull your credit report and look at your report. Typically, they'll show you the report, not the score, but it's a good way to just walk through and just kind of get a sense of where you are. You can also use a site, which is, and I'll put some of these links in the chat, but annualcreditreport.com. And that's a great way to go and pull your credit report with all 3 bureaus free of charge to take a look at your credit. All right, let's talk about debt reduction. If you're in this position where you may have amassed some debt, right? You've built it up and now you're in a position where you want to pay it down. You want to get rid of this debt. Then what do we do? What are some of the steps that we can take? What are some of the tips and tricks that we can use to successfully pay down our debt? Well, I'm going to start you off with some of the really important things, which is lifestyle changes. Some of the things that you may have to do. One of the first time that I ever wanted to get myself out of debt, it was at that point when I was just sick and tired of paying credit card debt. I was tired of those minimum payments on top of the bills that I had. I had these credit cards, and in some cases, they were higher than the bills that I was paying. So in that case, one of the first things that you have to do is remove them off of you. Take them out of your wallet, stop carrying them. That was the first thing I did. At one point, I used it as a crutch. I thought that I had to have them in case of emergencies. But at the point when they're all maxed out, you can't use them in an emergency anyway, right? So in that case, having the credit card may not be as helpful for you, right? So take it out of your wallet, and what you'll do is you'll force yourself to have to focus on using cash and cash only. So in that case, you can do that. The other thing is, when you get to that point, you may find out that, hey, I have to make additional income. I can't, I can't pay all of my bills. I can't manage all of my debt effectively based on the money that I'm making. So I have to find additional income in order to successfully pay down my debt, or even increase your savings. So that may be the other thing that you have to do. The other thing is lowering your expenses, finding ways to maybe cut a couple of bills, or find a few things that you have to sacrifice in order to effectively pay down your debt. Now, here's one of the things that you could do. They call it house hacking, or shared housing. If you have additional space in a house that you own, or you have additional space in a place that you rent, you could possibly sublease or move someone in and have them help pay down some of your debt. That additional income can be a helpful way to reduce your debt. Or if you move out of a space that you're in and you're splitting rent. We know in partnerships or with group economics, a lot can be done when we work together. Where, imagine not paying $1,800 to $2,000 worth of rent yourself, but then having someone else there, and maybe you can go up to a 2-bedroom and it's $2,400, but now you're splitting it 12 apiece, right? So now that's a much cheaper way to manage your expenses, and you've now saved some additional money that you can use to pay down debt. And I know we've moved out, we love our space, we're comfortable in it, we want it the way we want it. But just remember that sacrifice is temporary, right? So if we take care of this debt now, we set ourselves up for a life that we can live where we don't have to make these sacrifices. We live the life we want after we've done the things that we have to do to get there. So that's an important thing to know. The other thing is, if you have unused items, monetize them. You have a second car, rent it out. You have a pool, you could put it on. There's websites where you can rent your pool in your backyard. You could just rent out your backyard for events. If you have a great event space in your backyard, there's spaces where people will come and use it for photo shoots and things like that, right? So you could monetize some of your unused items, some of your unused space, in order to pay down your debt. And then anytime that you get a windfall of cash is any large sum of cash outside of your normal funds that you'll receive. So that could be tax money, that could be a bonus from taking a new job, that could be a bonus at your current job. If you get annual bonuses, you take that money, and of course you want to take that grand trip, you want to have a good time, but you may have amassed this debt while having a good time. So now we have to focus on paying it off, and then we can get back to a really good time where we have less bills. And remember, when you remove that debt, you've just removed a bill. So you no longer have to pay that bill, that credit card, that car loan, that personal loan, that store loan. Once it's paid off, that has been completely erased. And now you're able to do as you please with that money that you're saving. Now, there's a tool that I really like to use. I'm going to drop this in the chat as soon as we finish talking, but it's called the debt reduction. It's called the debt reduction calculator. And with the debt reduction calculator, it's a tool that you can use to actually measure all of your debt. You put in all your credit card balances, you put in the interest rates, and they're going to calculate how much your payments are, and they'll let you know exactly. And you can look here. You see your total amount of debt. You see the total amount that you're paying every month, and then you put in the amount of money that you can pay each month towards this debt. And what they're going to do is they're going to show you how soon you'll be debt free. If you look at that bottom right corner, they give you the date in which you'll be debt free after you fill this out. So they'll tell you your original balance. If you look at that far right column, they're telling you the dates in which each debt is going to be paid off. And you get to kind of project out when you'll be debt free. Sometimes being able to see it is when you can believe it. You want to know that, hey, this is something that I can do. So laying it out in this format is a great way to know that you can successfully manage your debt. The other thing is they even break it down in a chart in this way. So you can see which credit card's getting paid off by what date based on the amount that you said that you can pay. So when you go back and look at the budgeting section, We're going to teach you, we're going to show you how to create the budget so that you can see how much margin you have. And once you see that margin, now you're aware of exactly how much you can pay towards your debt each month. So that's going to be a helpful way for you to then lay it out in a debt reduction chart like this and look at exactly how long it's going to take you and what you're going to be paying towards. And you can lay it out in one of two methods: the debt snowball or the debt avalanche. The debt snowball is when you're paying the debt with the highest, with the lowest balance first. You want to clear out those lower balances so that you're gaining momentum and building momentum towards paying off all of your debt. So you pay off those lowest balances first, and then you move towards the next debt, but you take the same amount that you were paying towards that first credit card, and you move it towards the next debt, and you start to pay that one off consistently. So that's the journey that you're on. But this is a way to see the journey and sometimes a map is a great way to help you to realize that, hey, I could possibly do this. So it's important to make sure that you do that. And as I mentioned, I'll make sure that you get the links to these documents. We'll send them out, and they'll be in our they'll also be in the description after we share the live stream. So you'll be able to see them there as well. So now let's talk about some of the ways that we can truly win with debt, right? There are a lot of people that'll tell you, stay away from it. And I'm an advocate for staying away from it if you're having a hard time managing it. But if you're in a position where you can manage it well, it can in some cases be a tool that can help you in some ways. So let's talk about some of what some of that looks like. So one, using debt responsibly. Let's talk about some of the things that you should do. One, if you're buying something, for me, I'm a big fan of revenue generating purchases when it comes to debt. So we're, things for a business, things that are going to make us more money. Those are things that I could go into debt for because I'm using that debt to make more money. And in most cases, I'm using the revenue from that asset that I bought to pay for those loans. So that's one way, that you could responsibly use debt, right? For some people, we're using it to, buy things, which, if that's what you choose to do, then that's what you choose to do. But if you're using it for revenue generating purchases, then you could then take the revenue and the profits that you're making, and you can then start to buy some of the things that you may want, some of the discretionary things that you want. The other thing, buying a home, always, buying a home, if you're buying a home with debt, that's a very large purchase. And a lot of times you may need it. You may need a mortgage loan to do so. And in that case, one of the things that you want to look at is the 30% rule. So you don't want to spend more than 30%. So they tend to say your gross income. You don't want to spend more than 30% of your gross income monthly on your mortgage. So you want to, keep that in mind. So just to keep the numbers easy, if you brought in $1,000, you wouldn't want to spend more than $300 on your actual mortgage. And that's just a good rule of thumb to just kind of make sure that you're in a fairly safe space, because then you can afford everything else in your life comfortably after you pay that. So that's a good thing to do, is that when you make your budget, then take your mortgage payment, take your rent payment. And this is on just housing in general. You want to try to stay below that amount. So run the numbers and just kind of see, where am I in that, based on that rule, where do I land? So that's one thing to think about. The other thing is your debt to income ratio. When you're purchasing a home, they're going to look at a lender's going to look at your debt to income ratio. They want to see that you're at 35%. 35 to 36%. Some lenders will let you go a little higher, but then the interest rates may be a little higher. But they're going to look at your gross income, and then they're going to look at the amount of debt you have, and to do the calculations. Now, if you're in a position where you have you're taking out additional debt, let's say to buy a car, or you just have to repair something within your home, then one of the things that you want to do is just have a plan, right? You take on this debt, you get your payment amount, but see if there's a way that you can pay more than that. If you could pay some additional to pay it down faster. One of the tricks to to look into with the mortgage is making biweekly mortgage payments. So if you're paying your mortgage twice a month, you actually make one additional payment a year, and you'll pay your mortgage off 5 years sooner than you would if you're just making monthly payments. So that's something to keep in mind. Reach out to your mortgage lender and ask, can I move my payments to biweekly payments? The other thing that does for you is it frees up your cash flow. Instead of making one large lump sum payment of $2,400 out of your first check of the month or your last check of the month, then now you've split it up to two $1,200 payments. And now your cash flow is a little different. In most cases, they want you to be 1 month ahead so that you're never late with your payment, but it's a good way to manage that successfully. Now, why is all of this important? So this is what I want to just show you some stats as I prepare to close out. There are some stats that are really important for us to know. And these are some of the things that, this is why we have to play the credit game, and we have to manage our debt well, because, the numbers aren't always in our favor as of right now. So look at this. 40% of Black Americans say that they don't personally have credit cards. They don't personally have credit cards. All right, that's one stat. That's perfectly fine. But then they said that we tend to have the majority Black and majority Native American communities have the lowest median credit scores and the highest rate of subprime credit scores. So we have lower credit scores, meaning that we're getting higher interest rates, meaning that more money is being taken out of our pockets, the hard-earned money that we're working for. The higher incomes that we're making from going to college and doing these things, it's in some cases it's going into paying for assets that we're paying for over time. Homeowners of color, we tend to have an average credit score that's lower than some of our other counterparts. It's a couple more. We tend to, in some cases, we may be underbanked. We're living in neighborhoods that tend to be redlined, so the property values may not be as high. So these are some different stats that I want you to look at. And I didn't put these stats in here to try to be doom and gloom. This is to show you the opportunity. This is to let you know that there's so much more that we can do. There's so much further that we have to go. There's so much that we have to accomplish with the dollars that we make, with the opportunities that we have. We have to take advantage of these systems, and we want to put ourselves in positions where we're managing these things well, where we are very meticulous with our dollars so that we can successfully build our communities and grow our communities. And this is just something that I thought about. So every day that I spend paying for my past, I'm not building my future to its fullest potential. I want you to think about that. How much more can you do? How much more can be done in your community? How much more can be done in your family? How many more people can you serve and help in an amazing way if you are truly prepared and you're managing your money in a great way? So I want you to just ponder on that and think about that, and just think about how much, if we remove the debt, if we are managing credit in a way that's just buying assets and creating more wealth for our community, then what else can we do in our community? How much more powerful will we be if we do this successfully? So we want to kind of free ourselves from some of that debt. These are things that are holding us back. Like they say, the borrower is slave to the lender. You may have to consistently work. You may have to consistently take that second job. You may have to do a lot more because you have to continue to pay down this debt. So imagine the day when you are freed of all these things, when you've paid all these things off and you're able to do so much more with your income. So I want you to just think about that and use that to just consider managing credit, being a part of the debt game, managing debt well, and managing your credit well is going to be what benefits you over the long run. So here are a couple of resources and tools that I want you to use. As I mentioned, I'm going to put a lot in the chat, but then there's also a couple of things that I want you to look at. So there's AARP. As I mentioned, I'm here with AARP. So aarp.org/money. Whether you're 18 or you're 62, we have something for you within that span. We have even more. I said 62, but we could go up to 75, 80. We have information for everyone. There's so much great information from at AARP. And I'll put these in the chat. There's also AARP Money Maps Debt Management. This is a tool that we use to help you to manage your debt. You list all of your debt and you can pay things off over time. So we can prepare you for that. And then we have AARP's Interview and Advisor. If you're someone who needs, you need help It's perfectly fine to get a second opinion or to have a financial professional to walk you through what you need. Then in that case, you want to go to AARP's interview and advisor tool to find a professional. We are going to walk you through how to find a professional and make sure that you're protected against finding the wrong type of financial professional in this case. So take a look at these tools. I'll put this information in the chat. And thank you so much for being with me today. I'm going to pass it over to Dolores Kennedy Williams, and please put all of your questions in the chat. I'm going to come back and answer all your questions, and we'll try our best to get the questions from YouTube as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin. I have certainly learned a lot tonight, and I'm sure our audiences have also. I'm going to introduce our panelists, and we're going to ask them to share with each of us the work that their organization is doing in the area of financial readiness, including the outcomes. We will begin with Sandra Crowder, who is the president of the Women's Home and Overseas Missionary Society of the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, followed by Elizabeth Jones, who is the president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Inc. And then we will hear from Dr. Opal Bacon, who is the president of the National Colored Women's Clubs. And lastly, from our president of the Women's Missionary Society of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, Deborah Taylor King. So we will begin with you, Sandra.
Good evening. I'm honored to share on behalf of the Women's Home and Overseas Missionary Society. We are a mission service and outreach organization in the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church. In our organization, we make intentional efforts to focus on financial readiness because giving and sharing helps us to fulfill our mission. It is our goal to provide the necessary financial education and necessary tools to improve the financial and social outcomes for generations in our churches and for the communities in which we serve. The Women's Home and Overseas Missionary Society does not have a defined financial initiative, but through our local churches, our district mass meetings, our annual conferences, and our Episcopal districts, on all levels of the church, we stress financial wellness because it is a vital part of our ministry. And we do that through teaching and training. With our children, in which we call our buds, we like to introduce what we call philanthropy to them with very simple lessons, like stressing with them how to take maybe part of their allowances to give to charitable causes. And so we teach our children that by pooling their resources together, they might be able to buy beds for the animals, or we might encourage them to give to a children's hospital in which they might be able to help purchase wheelchairs. And so just teaching them those simple things of how they can take part of their allowance to just to help others, and to also show them the importance of saving their money. We do have a young lady who is a missionary in Buffalo, and her name is Mia Burson. She has written a book, and the title of the book is Saving Money with Randall and Jerome. And those are two little Black boys. And in the book, Mia takes the time to show how the next generation should build financial legacy. And she says in the book that it is important that our children receive economic empowerment and community mobilization strategies as early as possible. She has also founded what's called Next Generation Ventures, and that is a financial literacy fair for children. And so we always express the importance on all levels of the church to participate with our children in teaching them that their knowledge and their skills with using money starts when they're very young, and that way they're able to carry over. With our youth and our college age young people, we talk candidly with them about the pitfalls of borrowing and bring it to their awareness that they will be bombarded by applications for credit cards while they are in college. But at some point, they have to be able to say, I don't need all of these credit cards. And so we try to emphasize to them the importance of paying credit card bills on time, and if possible, pay them in full, and explain that it's crucial to keep loan balances manageable to avoid damage to their credit report. And we heard that in the presentation. For our young adults, an initiative and goal for them is to work towards setting aside at least 10% of their income for long-term financial goals. With careful planning and budgeting, they can build a solid financial base and good habits for a lifetime. Credit cards should not become long-term debt. And we say to our young people, to our young adults, only your mortgage should be your long-term debt. For our adults, and one of the things that we always express to our adults is to avoid making pledges that you can't keep. And we know that in the church, that's one of the things that we tend to do, make pledges, and then we may not be able to meet those pledges. And to also think about investing for long-term wealth. Have an emergency fund that you can always go back to. In our church, we also have in our Star of Zion, which is our official paper for the church, there's a section called Financial Freedom. And one of the things that's expressed in Financial Freedom this month was that we must be intentional and careful about who we're voting for. It should be persons who are going to have our best interests at heart when it comes to things such as our finances, our Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, etc. And so coming up in this summer in 2023, the Women's Home and Overseas Missionary Society will focus on self-care. And we know that one of the things in self-care is that of financial wellness. And so we will be doing a lot of teaching and training to our missionaries and to the church at large and the community, the importance of financial wellness. One of our writers said that we must be able to avoid financial trauma, go from financial trauma to financial wellness. And so some of the outcomes that we've had, we are empowering our families. If we empower our children, our teens, our young adults, then we will have empowered families and we will have empowered churches. Empowered churches will also make empowered families. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Sandra. We'll hear from Sister Elizabeth Jones, who's the National President of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. Sister Elizabeth.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the invitation to share what NCBW is doing in our communities across the nation regarding financial literacy and financial readiness. The National Coalition of 100 Black Women is comprised of activist women and our network of 61 chapters across the nation in 27 states and the District of Columbia. We are a 41-year-old national 501c3 nonprofit and nonpartisan organization. Our mission is to advocate on behalf of Black women to promote leadership development and gender equity in the areas of health, education, and economic empowerment. And our vision is that one day Black women and girls will live in a world where social, economic inequities do not exist. At the core of our work are education and mentoring. And we know that a woman's independence gains financial independence through economic empowerment. It is the key to uplifting and strengthening women's lives and ending generational poverty within our communities. Throughout the country, we promote economic self-sufficiency through financial literacy, family wealth building, life skills training, and economic empowerment for women who have experienced financial trauma or just simply needs a financial jumpstart, and in addition, entrepreneurship through our economic program, Sisternomics. Our trademark program is a philosophical mindset and commitment to ourselves and our sisters to consider ourselves first in economic choices, our path to economic empowerment. When we suffer, our families suffer and our communities suffer. We work with financial professionals in our communities and chapter members to create comprehensive curriculum modules during scheduled workshops and seminars. The curriculum consists of 5 core competencies that have modules and workshop lessons associated with each competency. So each competency, we do a very deep dive, and each competency will more than likely have 6 to 8 independent workshops. These workshops are free and are held year-round in locations where local chapters are based, or virtually or in person through community-based platforms for easy access to participants. The curriculum components consist of the 5 core aims or competencies: financial literacy, wage pay equity, entrepreneurship, home ownership, and youth financial literacy. The program has been very successful throughout the country, and in the past program year, we have reached over 6,000 unique attendees to our workshops. And our reach via social media, utilizing Facebook live streaming and YouTube, we've had over 23,000 unique persons that have viewed the workshops, the webinars. What we found through, we do pre and post testing. We want to determine in the beginning where our audience stands on the topics that we are discussing, and then to find out knowledge that they have gained, how they will utilize that knowledge. And in addition to that, we found that there are 4 financial topics that rise to the top: budgeting, investing and saving, credit, taxes, and wills. We were happy to find out in the last program year also that we had 76 women reported that they started their own new businesses. And then finally, we also host during National Small Business Week workshops for that entire week, what we entitled Elevate Minding Our Business for Black Females. And during that week, we focus on financing for entrepreneurs, startup, technology, marketing, and branding are some of the topics that we cover. We have been very successful and very happy that our sponsors are happy to see that the work that NCBW is doing in this area of financial literacy and financial readiness. And so we've been able to get funding through Wells Fargo, the Truist Bank, and Coca-Cola so that we can expand the programs to make them multiple programs that the chapters can deliver to the communities and provide incentives for the women to attend and et cetera. So that is what NCBW is doing for financial literacy and readiness.
Thank you so very much. We'll hear now from Dr. Opal, who is the president of the National Colored Women's Clubs. Sister Opal.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to share what the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs Incorporated are doing to enhance the financial stability of Black women and children. NACWC is a service organization comprised of 27, 30 some odd states. And because we have 5 levels, we have a variety of programs. We don't have a national initiative as of yet. This January, we're going to have a workshop that deals with money management, and it's called Getting Your House in Order. It will deal with things like your wills, taking care of your bank accounts, and all of those things that we might not think are important. We also have a committee that deals with mentoring women who are starting new businesses. Our women who are already business women, owners, or in the business field serve as their mentors. Most of our mentees have been young women who are members of our organization. COVID has been a boost in causing many of our women to seek self-employment. For our youth, in the clubs, we have different programs which ask the youth to work towards money management. One of the things we do is collaborate with banks. And in collaborating with banks for our youth, we encourage them to start savings accounts. They learn to do some budgeting. We talk about weighing need versus want, comparison shopping, long-term planning, and whether or not it's really important to pay that $200 for a pair of Air Jordans or whatever the newest thing is. We want them to think about how they're spending their money. We involve them in their fundraising for their trips, for club projects. In doing this, we stress the fact that not only do you take in the cost of the materials, but you factor in the time you spent to make the item. Therefore, we're giving them the background of knowing it's more than just putting something out there and saying, I'm going to drop a price on it. This fall, we're going to start our ROPE program. ROPE stands for Reaching Our Potential Excellence. This program is designed for junior high and senior high school students. It will focus on life skills. Among them will be managing money, ethics, decision-making, and so forth. Because each club is autonomous, we really don't have a set sugar base as to how these things have actually worked out. We can tell you that many of the clubs report that the young people enjoy them. We can tell you that they have learned and that they're excited. We hope to, since we've been invited to this webinar, and I've listened to my sisters, we will start trying to put together something so that we can measure our outcomes. And next year, if you have this, we will be able to say there was 100% participation, 20% participation in all that we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's what it's all about. And lastly, we will hear from the International President of the Women's Missionary Society of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, Dr. Deborah Taylor King. Deborah.
Good evening. I'm indeed honored to be a part of this informative webinar this evening with my sister organizations. And I thank the Black Women's Agenda for the opportunity And I thank you, Martin Booker, for your outstanding presentation. You stressed that good credit scores and network matters. And I'm blessed to walk and serve with the moderator of this evening, one of my mentors, and that I just love, Dr. Dolores Kennedy Williams. Our organization has been in existence since 1874, and we serve 20 districts, 39 countries, and 5 continents. The Women's Missionary Society of the African Methodist Episcopal Church serves as a world-centered, mission-focused, faith-based service organization. But at this time, we do not have a premier financial literacy program, but our global focuses are to empower women, embrace children, and eradicate hunger. And we strongly believe and aggressively stand and serve on this quote: empowered women empower women. Partnerships matter. We collaboratively and successfully partner with other nonprofit organizations such as Bread for the World, No Child Hungry, AARP, Church World Services, and of course, VWA, just to name a few, in a collaborative effort to effect positive change and greater impact. Some of the initiatives that we have done to help build generational wealth from a faith-based perspective is to work without ceasing to eradicate hunger, because frankly, if you're hungry, sometimes the rest does not matter. So we partner with Bread for the World with their global offering of letters to urging our nation's decision makers to help end hunger domestically and globally. We partner with organizations such as Dress for Success, equipping and empowering women in between blessings, not only donating professional business attire, but helping them to sharpen their skills, their interview skills, resume writing, and other critical skills needed to give them the competitive edge for employment opportunities to start building generational wealth. Empowering women matters. We intentionally invest, buy, and support women and minority-owned businesses. Investing in minority businesses also matters. And we teach and we train our children and our young people on check writing, tithing, the importance of saving and investments. We offer no deposit, no return awareness sessions. We must teach and train our children early on financial empowerment because it does matter. And finally, we strongly feel and work tirelessly to ensure that we change the dark statistics and disparities that continue to plague us as a people. Health is wealth. So we equipped and empowered them through extensive training, including mental, spiritual, and physical health. And we partner with organizations such as NCNW with their Good Health Wins. Again, health is wealth. Our health matters. Ultimately, in this season, although I said we did not have a premier literacy financial program, as Dr. Opal said, we are intentional about anytime we meet again to make sure that that is one of our focus. But in this season, we have pivoted to do new things in a new way to profoundly and positively transform lives, build communities, and impact this world in order to be that change. Thank you for this opportunity. God bless you.
Thank you so much. We have learned so much from all of your organizations. And now we're going to turn it over to Martin, who is going to answer some of the questions that have been put in the chat. I've seen quite a few, Martin.
Thank you, Dolores. And thank you to all of the esteemed guests. It was amazing hearing about your programs. And just know, as you lead your programs, I'm happy to be of service to you as well. So if you need me, just call me. I'd love to help out with all of the financial programs that are taking place. So let's get to the Q&A. So If you have a question, use the Q&A function within Zoom, or if you have a question, you can put it on YouTube as well, or you can drop it directly in the chat if you have a question. So I'm going to answer what I see so far. The first question I see is, well, first, happy Thursday. That was how they opened up their question. So let me respond in the same way. Happy Thursday to you too. Will removing old addresses impact your credit score in a negative way, impact your credit in a negative way? They will not old addresses, because here's what happens with addresses. Sometimes you'll see multiple addresses on your credit report, but that's because anything that you open that may have been associated with your social security number, it's showing up on your credit report. So there may be an address from a friend's house, an address from a college dorm where you stayed, or, somewhere where you lived out of state. That could be on your credit report. And if you want to have that removed, that's perfectly fine. That will not harm your credit. So keep that in mind. I have another question in the from YouTube that says, do you support moving a high interest rate credit card to a zero interest credit card or to multiple zero interest credit cards? So that will help you save some money. That's first and foremost by moving it to a zero interest rate credit card. And in some cases, that you may find a promotion that says, for 6 months, we'll give you zero interest on this credit card. I want to mention two things when it comes to those types of promotions. One, those companies in most cases are banking on you not paying that credit card off within those 6 months. They're banking on you using it and not fully paying it off in time. And they are mostly right. Most people that take out zero interest rate credit cards, they tend to use the credit card and not pay the full balance before the promotion ends. Credit card companies tend to know this. But if you're in a position where you are attacking your debt, you said, I'm tired of carrying debt. I want to pay this off and I will not keep this debt any longer. That could be a part of your strategy, but make sure you do it with intentionality. We want you to pay it, make sure that you pay it down and remove that debt. But during that interest-free period, attack that debt significantly, and it can be beneficial for you. So yes, I would support it as long as you have some intentionality and you're focused on truly paying that debt down. So that's going to be helpful. Next question is, paying off my house, will it hurt my credit score or not? So here's what happens when you pay off debt. So typically, here's what will happen if you close any credit card, any loan that you have. When you remove that loan, what happens is your amount of available credit goes down. And initially, that is going to hurt your credit score. But I want you to think about this. If you're paying your house off and you're paying your mortgage off, then you've more than likely paid off your credit cards, and you may have paid off any other car loans or other debt that you have. If you're in a position to pay your mortgage off, I want you to remember that you now will have a completely paid off asset. And in most cases, a 6 figures asset that you own in its entirety. If you do that, think about the amount of power, the amount of money that you have in your possession at that point, and you have no loan connected to it. So I want you to think about all that you could do. You could rent it out and make money. You can pass it down to the next generation. You could, if you had to, in a pinch, you could borrow against that home. If you were in a pinch and you needed to. So I would not, if I had a choice of having a completely paid off 6-figure valued home or a few extra points on my credit score, I'm taking that home all day, right? Because that's where generational wealth is built. That's how we continue to build our communities and our families and things of that nature. So if you're in the process of paying down your home, then if you're in that process and it's a matter of, hey, will my credit score go down? I want you to think about which one is going to matter the most, that credit score or that paid off home. But the other thing that I want you to consider is talking to a financial planner or a financial advisor while you're in that process. Because the one thing about our finances is all of our personal finance is so personal, right? We all come from different backgrounds. We have different levels of safety nets. We have different stories. We have a different willingness to take risk, right? We have, as I mentioned, with those 4 financial strengths, we're all different in this regard. So we want someone who's looked at our specific case and can give us details based on our numbers, our background, all the intricacies within our story, so that the plan that we're using is one that has been vetted by a professional, and it's tailored to what we need. So even with everything that I'm telling you, every tip, every trick, they can be helpful, but it's even better when you've had someone look at your specific case and give you direction based on your specific story and your specific details. All right. Now, do we have any more questions that are coming in from the chat or for the Q&A function? Anything that you want to know about credit, about debt, about preparing yourself for success with your finances? I'm happy to add to share any more details, but just to wrap up, I want you to know that, when it comes to your credit, when it comes to debt, the more that you eliminate debt, right? The more that you're not paying for your past, that's the more potential you have to build and optimize your future and to prepare for a better future and truly change your family, yourself, the generations to come, and even further your community. What all of our esteemed guests told us about the organizations and the people that they're serving and all the great work that's being done, they're putting that together because we want to see community change. We want to see we want to see so much greatness within us. So the more that you eliminate debt, the more that you manage credit well, the more that you're able to do that. So keep that in mind. Thank you so much for our time. And am I passing it back to you, Dolores?
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
Once again, let me thank all of these wonderful presidents who have shared so much information with us tonight. I am so impressed with what you're doing, and especially as relates to training our young people so that they will be much better at finance than we were. And when we're able to eliminate poverty, that so many times because we pay the poor tax, we get high interest credit cards, and we do all of those things that keep us in poverty. So the more our organizations do, the better we are. So thank you all. And I want to remind you that 2 weeks from tonight, on the 29th, June 29th at 8:30, we will have our third financial workshop, which is developing a saving plan and protecting our assets. And once again, Martin will share with us his knowledge, which is so vast. And remember, don't tell all of your friends and share with your organizations. That's Thursday, June 29th at 8:30 p.m. We want to thank Coca-Cola and the collaborating organizations and AARP and all of you who have taken the time this evening to be with us. We'll hope to see you in 2 weeks, June 29th. Thanks again and good evening.